Pod Save America is brought to you by Blue Apron, the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. Their mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone.
No one ever edits this.
For less than $10 per person per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. Choose from a variety of new recipes each week or let Blue Apron's culinary team surprise you. Recipes are not repeated within a year, so you'll never get bored. Customize your recipes each week based on your preferences. They have several delivery options so you can choose what fits your needs.
You'll never get bored because of the food. You might get bored with kind of the waning days of the golden age of television. Might be getting a little tiresome.
But we digress. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card and pre-portioned ingredients.
Get this, John. He's a cop, but he secretly uses drugs.
Thursday nights on CBS. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card and pre-portioned ingredients.
Get this, John.
And can be prepared in 40 minutes or less.
She's a nurse,
You'll
but she also uses drugs.
love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. Go to blueapron.com/crooked.
Like, is someone supposed to root for or against?
To get $30 off
Golden
your
age of
first
television.
meal with free shipping. That's blueapron.com/crooked. Blue Apron is a better way to...
The Melania is fake. It's fake Melania.
cook. Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm John Favreau.
I'm Dan Pfeiffer.
On the pod today, we'll be talking to the chairwoman of the Virginia Democratic Party, Susan Swecker. And a little bit later, we'll be talking to the host of Crooked Media's With Friends Like These, Anna Marie Cox. Also, be sure to check out this week's Pod Save the World, where Tommy talks to Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. They really throw down. It gets nasty. Not
Does
really.
it?
That's supposed to be clickbait, Dan.
All right, it's like next on my podcast listening list.
It's a
Just so
great
you know,
conversation.
Tommy.
It's a great conversation, though. It's really interesting, and so everyone go check it out. Also, go sign up at crooked.com for all kinds of exciting updates we'll have soon, and subscribe to Crooked Conversations, which will be launching in just a few weeks. Exciting stuff.
I have so many Crooked Conversation ideas. I just spend most of my day thinking about them.
Look at that. You're going to make Tanya so happy. Okay, let's start with a story that I had wanted to avoid because it's just sad and painful, but now it's been in the news for 4 days, and that is how Trump has handled the deaths of 4 U.S. Special Forces soldiers who were killed by ISIS fighters on the border of Niger and Mali. It is the deadliest combat incident since Trump took office. So, some background. The ambush took place on October 4th. On October 5th, Trump's National Security Council drafted a condolence statement from the president and the first lady. For reasons we don't yet know, the statement was never released, and Trump never said or tweeted a word about the soldiers who died until he was asked why 12 days later at a press conference. So, at that point, when asked this question, he said, well, if you look at President Obama and other presidents, most of them didn't make calls. A lot of them didn't make calls. So, Dan, I sort of missed this as it was happening, but I looked at Twitter and saw quite a few of our former Obama colleagues, you and most colorfully Alyssa, get understandably upset about this. What did you think? What was your first reaction here?
Well, I mean, I think I would associate myself with the remarks from the gentlelady of Rhinebeck, New York, Alyssa Mastromonaco, who called him a fucking liar and a deranged animal, which seems like...
That got some pickup, that quote.
It did. I mean, it became, in many ways, the official response of Obama World to Trump, and I'd never been more proud to be part of Obama World. To think about this, there are all sorts of ways in which Trump has eviscerated the norms by which presidents deal with former presidents. Now, of course, when we came in office, most of what we were doing was undoing what George W. Bush had done. And our main argument, without saying his name, was that the Bush administration had so screwed things up, it was going to take us a long time to get, the quote unquote car out of the ditch, or whatever tortured metaphor we were using at the time. But there is no, you would believe, maybe not in the world of Trump, you believe that the one sacrosanct thing you would not do is try to question the patriotism or the affinity of a previous president of either party question their dedication to the troops they serve. Like the one sacrosanct part of the presidency that goes beyond politics is the role and responsibility of commander in chief. Now, people may make different presidents make different decisions, national security decisions, but the one thing that you believe, and even if, as much as we disagree with President Bush on Iraq and some of the other disastrous decisions he made, I don't doubt his affection for and loyalty to the troops who served them. And so for Trump to do this was just such a disgusting and so obviously false smear of President Obama that, it led to the reactions like the one Alyssa had. I was screaming at my TV as it was happening.
I mean, I have to say that I was not completely surprised. I mean, he has called Barack Obama the founder of ISIS and accused him of a felony of wiretapping him. So I just sort of think nothing is out of bounds with him at this point. But I thought it was revealing. I mean, let's talk about what really happens when you're in the White House and you get notice that American soldiers, that American armed service members were killed in action. Barack Obama called countless families during his 8 years in office, families whose sons, daughters, husbands, mothers, wives were killed in battle. He also sent letters. I think if he didn't call them, he sent letters to almost every family. He visited Walter Reed. He went to Dover Air Force Base to greet flag-draped coffins as they came off the plane. And so it is true that Obama, not every president preceding him, does not sometimes have time to call each and every service member's family, particularly in the middle of two wars when, sadly, there were a few soldiers, died almost every day, which is tragic in its own right. But it's revealing that Trump's reaction to the question was to immediately blame Obama and not to say, like, Trump could have diffused the entire situation by responding to the question, we make sure that every single family who loses someone in battle, who loses someone who has served this country, hears from us in some way, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a letter, whether it's a visit. Of course, it's important to reach out, and I'm doing that now, right? That's all he had to say. But he has this fucking Fox News point of view on everything, where if you're attacked, instead of defending yourself, you just attack a Democrat and you bring them into it, right? Like, I always think if Donald Trump actually shot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue like he said he could and not lose any fans, what Fox News would do is they wouldn't defend Donald Trump for shooting someone. They'd start talking about Hillary Clinton and Vince Foster or Barack Obama and Bill Ayers. Like that's what they do. They just deflect and say, oh, we don't care what kind of bad things that our side did. We're just going to now talk about all the bad things and conspiracy theories about the other fucking side. Like that's how they operate. And that's how Donald Trump operates, because he is a Fox News viewer who ended up in the fucking White House.
He is so sad. It is, I sort of always view that Trump's strategy when cornered is to lash out and lie. That's his natural comfort place. And I think it is mostly Democrats, but he would also lash out at Republicans. It would lash out at anyone.
It's nonpartisan. He doesn't care who. He would lash out at his own family as long as it wasn't himself. Like he has shown no capacity for empathy for any other human being, or to even think about anyone but himself the entire time we've seen him in public life. I don't even know of an exception. I don't.
No, you remember that we talked about this at the convention, and one of the main points of political conventions is to highlight the human side of the candidate, of the nominee, that may not come through in day-to-day political coverage or whatever else. It's like, and in every other, for winning and losing candidates, for good people and less good people who've been nominees, someone can come up with some very touching story because they are human beings who have families and lives and children. In the Republican convention, there were no one. Not Trump's children, not anyone else from his life could tell a story that showed anything human about him, or he put someone else or something else before himself. And that was not a and I don't think it's because they forgot that part of conventions. It did not exist. That part of Trump that separates the rest of us from robots either never existed or ceased to exist at some point and was destroyed by the sort of culture of the narcissism that comes with being famous. I don't know what it is. I don't, I won't diagnose it, but it's certainly fucked up. It's something deeply wrong with that man. Yeah. So I was thinking about, Trump is, like we talk about when they're, like we can teach robots to drive cars and beat chess masters, but they always say you can't teach them to be human. Yeah. Like Trump is that. Trump is the example of the pinnacle of robots. Like we'll know like whether someone is a Terminator or a human based on their ability to do things like call widows of people who lost their lives while serving you. And Trump fails the robot test. I mean, that part of the story was like, yeah, we can be enraged that Trump attacked Obama, but I'm pretty used to him saying horrible things about our former boss. And I would imagine that if you asked Barack Obama, he would be like, yeah, that's what this, like, he would not even be that upset because he just expects that from Donald Trump. So if the story ended there, that's one thing. But of course, the story takes an even more depressing turn the next day when Trump told some moron at Fox that Obama didn't call General Kelly when his son died in Afghanistan in 2011. And then the White House staff started pushing this story to reporters. Now, Obama didn't call Kelly because, like we said, presidents don't call every single family, but he did invite General Kelly and his wife to an event at the White House with Gold Star families shortly afterwards. So now Trump has decided he's in the middle of a fight that he refuses to lose, and this is the part where he does not care who he has to hurt to win the fight. He doesn't care that he has to bring up the dead son of his chief of staff, who his chief of staff has avoided talking about because it's so painful. And he didn't even ask Kelly if he could bring up, now we find out, if he could bring up his son. Didn't even ask his chief of staff, just did it, just to prove a fucking political point. And now we have General Kelly and his heroic son brought into this story, and now we have to deal with this. Now his family has to deal with this. It's just like, that's what got me even angrier than the initial attack on Obama. Yeah, I have a very complicated set of emotions around Kelly in the sense that, here is someone who has served his country, with great distinction for a long time. Unlike Gary Cohn, who's selling his soul for the chance to cut his own taxes and maybe be the Fed chair, I do get the sense that Kelly is taking on this horrible, miserable job because he thinks America needs him on that wall. But when you read this, Kelly was the highest ranking U.S. military official to lose a family member in, Iraq and Afghanistan. And he, as you point out, he went out of his way to talk about it very rarely because he did not want to when you read some of the stories about it, it's that he had a lot of, troops serving with him who had lost colleagues or family members, and he didn't want to put his story above their own, and that it was somehow different because he had a higher rank than it. That was very admirable. And then for Trump to use that for someone who has been incredibly loyal to him it's just simply disgusting. And the part that I took away from that is it shows so much how we have so dumbed down expectations of humanity in our president that a lot of the commentary from White House reporters over the last 48 hours is, well, Kelly should have known that you don't tell Trump things because he will utter them publicly.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm just trying to I tried to step back from this when I was thinking about this issue the other night. I'm like, let's just forget about anyone in the public eye. Like, if you lost a family member, especially if you lose a family member in combat, like, I can't imagine the pain and the grief that you must go through. And now to think that pain and grief are going to be public and used in politics somehow, It's going to be on TV. People are going to be talking about it. Reporters are going to be analyzing it. Like, it's just so fucked up, you know? And it's like the president of the United States had the ability and has the ability to avoid that. And you're supposed to think about these things. And people in public life are supposed to think about these things. And you're supposed to be careful about this stuff, you know? And if for no other reason, forget about politics, then you're just a human being who wants to, like, think about other human beings and their feelings. Like, it's so sad.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Kelly was angry that Obama didn't call him and he wanted to talk about it, or he told Trump could talk about it, it is Kelly's family's tragedy, right? And, you know, people should respond to that if they want to deal with that in private or in public. That is their decision to make. It is not Trump's decision to make. And the idea that it's just that Kelly should have known, we've all worked for politicians where if you have to tell them that, you know, if you tell them a piece of information about, like, a poll that just came out, or, a policy decision or something that, you know, that you're still running down the details of, that you tell them, like, don't mention this in your press conference. That's one thing. It is like even the most insensitive human would pause and think before you shouldn't have to tell anyone. You shouldn't have to tell a small child that that's not something you should utter publicly. And then for Trump to do it is just, the whole thing is just, it's sad. It's sad for Kelly's family. It's sad for America that we have a president who acts like this. And it's sad that, and I think this is really one of the worst parts of Trumpism, is that it automatically reduces every conversation to its most basic and stupidest form. Like, there is a real conversation about decisions to send men and women into combat, decisions about war, to conversations about, you know, use of force, and
also, and just in this specific incident, like what really happened in Niger.
Yes,
like we don't know
exactly.
Why were the troops ambushed? Well, I mean, there's questions about those too.
Yeah, and because of Trump and his minions in the right-wing propaganda forces, the conversation we're having instead is, did Barack Obama call all the troops, and did Trump all the troops' families, and did Trump call any of the troops' families? Like, that's the wrong conversation, right? It is like, there is not a test to say you have to call every family member who lost their life, or you have to send them a letter or visit with them. Like, that is the wrong conversation.
The test is just, please don't lie about it. You know, like, just please tell us the truth about what you're doing.
Exploit it.
Or exploit it.
It shouldn't be this hard.
And it also bugs me because, like, you know, we're on day 4 of this story. That's like one more news cycle than we had when the Republican chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee said he's concerned that the president of his own party may start World War III. It's like, you know what's disrespectful to our troops and their families? Starting World War III. Like, it's just, you know, all of these things are now discussed on the same plane. You know, like Bob Corker says something crazy, and so let's talk about that. About, you know, he thinks Trump's crazy. Let's talk about that for a couple of days. Now Trump lied about calling troops families, so let's talk about that for a couple of days. It's just like, there's this leveling effect of all these controversies that we don't have a perspective on, like, what's most important. And of course, like, the story got even worse and more depressing the day after, because Trump finally called the widow of Sergeant David Johnson, one of the soldiers who was killed in Niger, and reportedly said to her, quote, "He knew what he signed up for, but I guess it still hurt." Now, we heard about this because Democratic Congressman Frederica Wilson was in the car because she knew the family. She mentored Sergeant Johnson when he was a child. And so the Sergeant Johnson's widow was in the car. His mother was in the car. And, of course, the mother has since confirmed that this is what Trump said. The White House's response is, they're not denying that that's what he said, but they're saying, you know, she took it out of context. But, of course, now Trump's in a fight, you know, where he said, I have proof that the Democratic Congresswoman's lying that I said that, and I can provide that proof. Of course, he doesn't have proof. He also has, like, proof that Obama was wiretapped that we're still waiting for, and that 3 million people illegally voted in the election that we're also waiting for. And, you know, it's just like things like this, too, where the mother said, and that, you know, Trump really didn't even remember Sergeant Johnson's name when he called and things like that. And you can tell that point, Trump was so annoyed by the attacks he was getting in the media over his initial statement that to him the call was just like, oh, fine. Now, you know, you've made me do this, so now I'm going to do this, and it's going to be perfunctory, you know?
The White House did not deny Trump said it, but Trump did deny he said it. He said it was fabricated, and he had proof.
Right.
And they said the White House later, through the array of background sources, said that the proof was that John Kelly was in the room. Now, that's not actually proof. And then, do I think Trump was trying to offend the widow?
I don't.
No, of course not. He just is incapable. He's incapable of expressing empathy or sympathy. He just doesn't have those emotions. Like, that was left out of the package when he was created. So one reaction to this would be to simply say that I certainly in no way meant to do anything other than recognize the sacrifice and the heroism of Sergeant Johnson.
Right.
And
very easy.
I apologize if it came off in the wrong way, and just let it go. Like, that is the only way to approach that any normal person would do. And it's not the politics of fighting with a Gold Star family, which is how this is being covered somewhat with. So it's like, well, this probably isn't going to hurt Trump because he fought with the cons during the campaign, and he's still president. So therefore, Teflon Don can do anything. When it's like, no, that's not the point. Who gives a shit about the politics of arguing with a widow? Let's actually instead think about the feelings of this family who are going through a tremendous tragedy with a widow who is pregnant and has a small child, and a family in a community that is mourning a hero. And just like, shut your trap for 1 minute and just let it go. But he can't.
I know. That's exactly right. Like, I don't give a shit about the politics. I don't care about whether, like, Trump looks worse or better because of this. Just, like, everyone just be fucking human for 5 seconds. That's all we're asking. And let's just, like, move on to the next thing, So that's what we'll do. I mean, we should also say that, the army is investigating what actually happened in Niger, why these troops lost their lives, why there was an ambush. There's a whole bunch of questions. John McCain was asked if Trump was being upfront about what happened. He said no, because I would not like to repeat the crazy witch hunt that the Republicans engaged in after Benghazi. I'm not going to make a big issue about it. I'm just going to say I would like the army to investigate this and find a full report of what happened, and we'll look at that report, and then we can move on. Or we can fix whatever happened. We're not doing fucking Benghazi like those awful fucking people did for all those years for no fucking reason. Anyway. So
I would note for the listening public that on midday Tuesday, when we emailed about this, you said, quote, "If we are still talking about this on Thursday, I'm going to scream." I think we all appreciate that you did not scream.
I wanted to because
it sounds like you're holding it back.
Yeah, it just made me really upset. Okay, let's talk about the Affordable Care Act, as you called it, the case of the disappearing deal. Earlier this week, after months of negotiating, Democratic Senator Patty Murray and Republican Senator Lamar Alexander reached a deal on a bill that would fund the Obamacare subsidies and Obamacare enrollment assistance that Trump cut recently. In exchange for Republicans agreeing to fully fund the law so that it can work as it intended and provide people with affordable health insurance, Democrats agreed to give states more flexibility to experiment with their own health care programs as long as they still provide affordable coverage. Seems like a good bipartisan deal. You got Republicans on board, you got Democrats on board. It is designed to make a law work as it was intended, and that is to help people afford health care. Trump says he's for this, and then when the deal is announced, he basically changes his mind and comes out against it. What did you make of the 24-hour flip-flop there?
To be honest, I have no clue. Not a clue. Because, other than it might be Exhibit A in whatever innocent for reason of insanity, not guilty for reason of insanity defense Trump may use in the Mueller trials later, but because he talked to Lamar Alexander on the phone and indicated support for what Lamar Alexander was working towards. Basically, because when these deals are done, the majority party, or the president's party at least, talks to the White House to get a steer, because they can't agree to a deal that the president is not for, because they're going to need him to sign the bill. So they got the high sign that said, go ahead. He praised it, and then just a little while later, and I assume it's because of something that was said on Fox News, he pulled the plug on it. And not they're almost there. They didn't get exactly to where I wanted to be, but no, this, I think he said like Lamar Alexander is a good guy, but this deal, goes to the bottom line of insurance companies who are making record profits, and I can't do that. And so I just don't know. I mean, maybe is it like, I don't know. I'm clueless on this.
One clue is that he does have a former Freedom Caucus crazy in his cabinet, which is Mick Mulvaney is the OMB director. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago when Alexander and Murray were working on this deal, I think Mulvaney told Politico, like, we don't want that deal. We don't want a deal that just funds Obamacare. We want to repeal and replace Obamacare. And so sometimes I wonder with these budget things if Mulvaney sort of gets in his ear about some of this stuff, because Mulvaney is the closest thing to a Fox News viewer that you have in the cabinet. I shouldn't say that. We have Sessions there and a whole bunch of other crazies. But anyway, so I wonder if it's a Mulvaney thing. The other assholes who came out against this are, of course, Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. Paul Ryan pretty strongly. Mitch McConnell was hedging his bets a little bit more. Because even Mark Meadows of the Freedom Caucus said something nice about this, when it was first announced. So, I don't know what we do now, because
that's right. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, Washington is, has fetishized bipartisan deals for a long time. We know that when we were there. And look, bipartisan deals are a good thing. Both sides come together and then we get something done. But here we have an example of Democrats and Republicans coming together around a piece of legislation that could improve people's lives. And now the President of the United States is saying, no, I am sabotaging Obamacare. I want this law to fail. And the only reason I want, and he doesn't have a good reason why he wants the law to fail. He's also he said the other day, Obamacare's dead. Don't even talk about it anymore. It's dead. It doesn't exist. And then he also said the next breath, but by the way, if premiums go up, it's Obamacare's fault. So, you can't have it both ways, asshole.
Yeah. It's just, you can't have it both ways, asshole. Yes, that is correct. I think I blocked the person who tweeted this out of my memory because I didn't want to hold the lifelong grudge against them. But after the deal was announced, some reporter tweeted, Trump's high-risk strategy on ACA pays off.
What?
And the idea
what?
being that I know. I would go back and look for this, but then you and I would just assail them on Twitter 5 days later, and it's not a good use of any of our time.
Show me the dividends. And in what way does it pay off?
Well, this was pre-Trump bailing on the deal. So the logic here was he canceled CSR payments in this sort of art of the deal brinksmanship of I'll just walk away from this deal, and that forcing them to come to the table. Now, that's idiocy for two reasons. One, this person has clearly never met Trump before, because everything that comes before this shows that he has the strategic thinking of a rabid raccoon. Two, this deal was already done months ago before McConnell scuttled it. And you guys talked about this on Monday, scuttled it so that to give Graham Cassidy, GCHG, if you will, a chance to pass.
GCHJ.
GCHJ. I think GCHC is a party drug.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But then that's a narrative you could theoretically stick to. I did brinksmanship. I got a deal I wanted. It's bullshit, but you could sell it. And then he just pulled the plug on the deal.
Yeah.
And which is also this is proof that no one's thinking this through is, as you guys talked about on Monday, there's a good chance he's going to have to swallow this in the end, because most Republicans want this because it's their states who are getting screwed. And they don't want to, they're smart enough to know that they're going to own this, because the insurance companies are sending out letters saying your premiums are going up because the Trump administration canceled the payments. So they know that this is on them. And so he's going to sign a deal, unless the government is shut down indefinitely, which would be bad for national parks, but I don't know, maybe it'll be good for safety. He's going to end up probably having to eat a deal that he said he doesn't like. And so I don't know.
Well, and also the argument that was bandied about that, oh, he did this because it's not legal to make these payments, and what we really need is a legislative solution to this. Well, there's your legislative solution. You don't want that either. So it had nothing to do with the legality of the payments. It just, let's stop pretending that it did. The other thing is
it was a temper tantrum.
He keeps calling it a bailout for insurers. Because of what he did and because he's rejecting this deal, the government's going to spend more money. So that's more money for taxpayers. And middle-class people who don't get subsidies through the Affordable Care Act, they're going to spend more money. And guess what? Insurance companies are going to make more money because he did this. They're not going to make less money. They're going to make more money. So the whole bailout for insurance companies is another bullshit argument from him.
Yeah, it's... You know whose fault this is?
Who?
Mitt Romney.
Why?
I'm sorry. I said Mitt Romney. I confused Mitt Romney with Marco Rubio.
Yes,
This is actually Marco Rubio's fault. Yes.
I was yelling about this to Lovett yesterday, that it was Marco Rubio's fault. Because during the campaign, he was the one that said, I'm going to end the bailout for insurance companies. Like, he started this whole thing.
Yeah, I really stepped on my line there. But yes, it was Marco Rubio.
How dare you speak of Mitt Romney?
I know.
Our hero. Our hero in waiting.
That's right.
If only. So yeah, you alluded to this. What happens next is this sort of year-end scenario where, and we've talked about this in the pod before, where Trump needs to fund the government. He doesn't have the votes to fund it within his own party, which runs Washington because he has too many crazies in his own party. He needs Democratic votes. Therefore, Democrats have leverage. And as part, the Democrats should say, as part of funding the government, fully funding the government, is fully funding the laws in the government, and one of those laws is the Affordable Care Act, and making this law work is part of funding the government. I mean, it seems like a very sensible, reasonable argument for the Democrats to make.
Yeah, I'm not worried about this. I have complete faith that at the end of the day, Nancy Pelosi will be smarter, tougher, and savvier than Paul Ryan, and will know how to get what we need done.
Good. And we should also let people know that we can do something about help making sure that people get enrolled, sign up for Affordable Care Act over the next couple months. Open enrollment, which is the period that you can sign up for the Affordable Care Act, it's going to be much shorter this year because the Trump administration made it shorter because they don't want people to have health insurance. But it is going to be between November 1st and December 15th. Those dates are very important. Tell everyone you know. And if you go to getamericacovered.org, you can find out how you can help and spread the word to make sure that everyone signs up for health insurance who can, because the Trump administration refuses to do that. Okay, let's talk about Virginia before we bring on Susan Swecker. This is perhaps the closest, biggest election of 2017. It's the governor's race in Virginia between Democrat Ralph Northam and Republican Ed Gillespie. Barack Obama is back on the campaign trail there today, later Thursday. I figured before we talk to Susan, it'd be good for us, the two of us, to freak out about the race for a few minutes, since we haven't had the chance to do that in a while. Freak out about an election. So just some background. In 2016, Clinton won Virginia 49.8 to 44.4. The outgoing Democratic governor, Terry McAuliffe, has an approval rating of like 52, disapproval 34. And the current Real Clear Politics average, hasn't said that in a while, has Northam up 5.8%, about 49 to 44. But there was a Monmouth poll out Tuesday that showed Gillespie up 1. It was the first poll that showed Gillespie up in quite a while, or maybe the whole race. Other polls have showed it close. It's an off-year election, which means that turnout is always a challenge for Democrats in off-year elections. People are anxious, and why not? Of course they should be anxious. What do you think, Dan? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, Democrats should win. Therefore, I'm scared shitless because, I mean, there's a couple of things here. One, Ed Gillespie, whose actual official title is super lobbyist Ed Gillespie, almost beat
Enron lobbyist Ed Gillespie. Dan.
Yes,
he was an Enron lobbyist.
So everything. I mean, he is the swamp. Like, Ed Gillespie is the personification of the swamp, and now he's running as like a Breitbart Trump pro-nationalist nativist candidate trying to appeal to Confederate sympathetic voters. But he almost beat Mark Warner, friend of the pod, in 2014. Mark Warner is incredibly popular in Virginia. No one thought the race was going to be at all close, and it was incredibly close, went down to the wire in the very end. And so we should be worried about this. And all of the most disgusting tactics that Trump his Russian friends, his Breitbart friends used to try to scare voters in 2016 are being used by Ed Gillespie in this race, including running ads that our fair president has endorsed, saying that Ralph Northam is working to help MS-13, the gang from El Salvador. So,
which is like also this stems from like the Gillespie's campaign blamed Northam for the gang MS-13 because Northam voted against banning sanctuary cities in Virginia, even though there are no sanctuary cities in Virginia. So somehow he's talking about sanctuary cities and gangs sprouting up in sanctuary cities. It doesn't even make sense, the connection he's drawing, but who cares? We don't need truth anymore in Republican ads. We haven't had that in a while. And so they have these ads that show tattooed Latino men and blare the words "kill, rape, control" across the screen. Very subtle, didn't you think?
Yeah, these people are so terrible.
Well, and I just read the story too. Gillespie's like all upset because he has like 20 different policy papers and he wants this to be a campaign about substance and all of his ideas. And granted, I'm sure he has a whole bunch of ideas and a whole bunch of policy papers, but all his fucking money is being spent on these disgusting ads. So
we have to beat him for several reasons, which I'll say. But also he will carry if he loses and he tries to go back into the Palmer, Charlie Palmer's with his cufflinks and pocket square and fit in, everyone should remember that he ran a disgusting racist campaign, and he should that will hopefully be in the first line of his Wikipedia page going forward. Now,
yeah, well,
we're going to ask Susan.
I stopped hoping for that when Sean Spicer was on the Emmys and then got a fellowship at Harvard. So, but anyway, that's a topic for another time.
Fair enough. We'll ask Susan how our listeners who do not live in Virginia can help, because I've been very concerned about everywhere we went. Everyone asked us earlier this spring about Jon Ossoff and the Georgia race.
Yeah.
We just did a tour of the country, and maybe 2 or 3 people asked us about Virginia. And in Twitter, everyone was Ossoff, very little about Northam. This race actually matters more than that one did. That was one more seat in the House that we were not in charge of. The governor of Virginia, in addition to making important policy that affects millions of Americans, will help determine redistricting, and also will send a message to this could be the shot heard around the world either way. Right. If we lose this race, it's going to have implications about what Democrats will run in 2018, whether Republicans will retire, how scared Republicans will be in the House and the Senate to pass Trump policies. And if they win, if Gillespie wins, that will be a permission structure to Republicans to do horrible things. And so this race matters whether you live in Virginia or not.
Yeah, no, there are a number of congressional seats that are basically up for grabs. And, the outcome of this election, like you said, this next governor of Virginia is going to do redistricting. And so that's going to, and if there's Ed Gillespie, he's going to gerrymander the shit out of all these districts. And we're going to have a bunch more Republicans in the House, and it's going to be even harder to take back the House. We're not talking about 2018, 2020, 22, and beyond. We've got to think about the future here. And so if you care about all these issues, if you're upset about Trump, if you're worried about everything he's done, if you hate this Republican Congress, if you want to change things, it has to start in Virginia. And if you're in Virginia, please get involved and make sure you vote and get your friends to vote. And if you're outside of Virginia, we're going to ask Susan what people can do to help. So when we come back, we will be talking with Susan Swecker, the chairwoman of the Virginia Democratic Party. Pod Save America is brought to you by ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter.
With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click.
Job boards.
So you can rest easy knowing your job is being seen by the right candidate.
Rest easy in your lounger.
Then ZipRecruiter puts its smart matching technology to work, actively notifying qualified candidates about your job.
And you're doing other things.
Within minutes of posting.
You're eating a TV dinner.
And you receive the best possible matches.
Watching some kind of an anti-hero get revenge on the worst villain.
No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day.
Maybe you're making your way through Stranger Things to get ready for the new season.
That's what I have to do. And the easy-to-use ZipRecruiter dashboard lets you manage your hiring process from start to finish, all in one place. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire, and that's why you should find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by growing businesses of all sizes.
Get this, John. It's a period drama, but they have problems like we have problems today.
in industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. Right now, Pod Save America listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free.
You
That's
didn't
right,
know that,
free.
though. You didn't know that people in old-timey hats had the same kind of things,
Go to ZipRecruiter.com/crooked. That's ZipRecruiter.com/crooked. One more time.
like a Peaky Blinder.
Not you. One more time. Try it for free. Go to
Or a
ZipRecruiter.
Boardwalk Empire.
ZipRecruiter.com/crooked. We're also doing ads for various television shows
Golden Age of Television.
while we talk about our sponsors. The end. Pod Save America is brought to you by Wink.
Wink.
Let me give you a task. Pick out a wine you're going to love, but there's a catch. It has to be one you haven't had before. What would you do if I gave you this task, Lovett?
I don't know where to begin.
Well, you'd use Wink.
Okay.
It's spelled W-I-N-C, and they make it easy to discover great wine. Because Wink's wine experts select wines matched to your taste, personalized for you, shipped right to your door, and starting at just $13 a bottle.
John?
Yes.
Is there a wine that pairs well with a lawyer who doesn't play by the rules?
There's nothing like coming home to a box of delicious...
Who also has a drug problem?
There's nothing like coming home to a box of delicious Wink wine selected just for you. It's the best day of your month. Now, when they say box, it's not boxed wine. They think they'd have to be careful here. It's a box of Wink wine.
I think that there's really...
Not that there's anything wrong with drinking
There's
wine
nothing
from the
wrong
box.
with box wine, and I think that the idea that the vessel the wine comes in is very important is silly. Like,
Sort of
corks
an
are
antiquated
stupid.
notion, huh?
Corks are stupid, and we should go to screw
I
top.
love a good screw up.
It's insane.
Screw top. Sorry.
Do you like the smooth glide of a screw off?
I'm one wipe Johnny over here.
Okay.
Discover great wine today. Go to trywink.com/crooked. You'll get $20 off your first shipment. That's TRYWINC.com/crooked for $20 off. Each month you get new delicious wines.
It could come in a fucking milk carton. It'd be
No
good.
membership fees. Skip any month. Cancel anytime. You don't have to know anything about wine. Wink's going to do it for you.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. That's trywink.com/crooked. $20 off. Go get it today.
Get wine at your house.
On the pod today, we are lucky to have with us the chairwoman of the Virginia Democratic Party, Susan Swecker. Susan, welcome to the pod.
Well, thanks for having me. Good to be on your show and talk about all the exciting things that are going on in Virginia.
Yes.
I will say, I'm out here in Vegas because we have a DNC meeting and state chairs meeting going on.
That's right.
And I'm really conflicted because President Obama is coming to Richmond today, making his first appearance, post-presidential appearance for our ticket. And, I wish I could be there, but I felt like I had to be here and do my duty and pump up the ticket out here. But I want to let everybody know that not to worry, that all the campaign money and party money stayed in Virginia, so it didn't come to Vegas with me.
Look, we have that conflict too. We're going to Richmond for a live show, Pod Save America, in a couple weeks. But when I saw that Obama was there today, I'm annoyed that we're not there already because it'd be fun to see the old boss campaign again.
Yeah, and John, you've also chosen Vegas over Obama before yourself. So.
That's true. I have stayed there and let Air Force One fly home without me. So anyway, let's talk about the race. So I think most of our listeners know that the race is very tight. They know that it's very important. They know that Ed Gillespie is running a bunch of nasty ads about gangs and Confederate statues. But I think outside of Virginia, people probably don't know too much else about the race. What should people know about this race, about Ralph Northam, and about Ed Gillespie?
Well, one thing about, and I do want to say this because a lot of people do ask if you don't live in Virginia, we are the only state that a governor cannot succeed himself.
Right.
So, one, that's why our fantastic governor, Terry McAuliffe, isn't running for re-election. But his lieutenant governor, Ralph Northam, Dr. Northam, who's a pediatric neurologist, is running, has the Democratic nomination, and we have, a really great ticket. And you're exactly right. Ed Gillespie, who is the Republican nominee, is running one of the really nastiest races that I have seen in a long time. Now, look, I'm a native Virginian. I've been involved in Democratic politics since I was knee-high to a pup, and boy, this one just really, takes the cake. Ed Gillespie has really shown the descent of the Republican Party over the last couple of decades, and, years ago he worked, let me just give an example. He worked in the Bush White House. Mm-hmm. He's a D.C. insider, lobbyist. He supported comprehensive immigration reform, really just a paragon of the GOP establishment. And we've watched him transform himself into basically a mini Donald Trump in a desperate attempt and effort to win the race. and he is, has ads up telling all sorts of despicable lies about Ralph Northam and that he supports sanctuary cities and gangs and the voters really, we have a pretty smart voting population in Virginia, and they're not buying into it. On the other hand, Ralph Northam has a history of service to his country and service to Virginia. He is a veteran, a doctor who served patients in Desert Storm, came back home. He's from rural Virginia like me. I'm from the western part of the state. You can probably tell that I might have a little bit of rural in me from my accent, but I grew up in the mountains of Virginia. Ralph Northam grew up on the eastern shore, got his medical degree, and he's a pediatric neurologist. Has, never really is talked about a lot, but, cares for sick kids. Then served in the state senate. And then he was elected 4 years ago with our ticket, with Terry McAuliffe as governor and our great Attorney General Mark Herring as lieutenant governor. And he's been a brick wall with his ticket mates, his partners, against all the very right-wing, intrusive legislation that Republicans have put up to defund Planned Parenthood, to any kinds of attack on women's rights. And trust me, there have been plenty on, lots of things, to intrusions on making into women's health care decisions, defending the ACA, those types of things. Ralph is going to be right there to do that as governor, just like he has done as lieutenant governor. I'm worried. I'm worried because, what happened November 8th, was one of the worst nights of my life, worst except for losing somebody I loved. But when I look back on it, we got to remember, folks, we did well in Virginia. Hillary Clinton won by 5 points in Virginia. We picked up a congressional seat. We elected a very a rising star and a 35-year-old African-American mayor in the city of Richmond, LeVar Stoney, who is doing great stuff. And we defeated a very onerous, backwards-looking constitutional right-to-work amendment with very little money, that partnering with organized labor and our local committees and got the word out. And, you don't usually defeat a constitutional amendment in Virginia. So it was a dark night nationally, and, we're seeing the ramifications of every vote counts and that elections have consequences. But for us in Virginia, it was really a good night. And I never thought, growing up and being a Virginian, I'd see the day that we would carry Virginia, and if Virginia would go blue, and we'd lose the presidential election.
Yeah.
Susan, how can our listeners who do not live in Virginia, how can they help get Ralph Northam elected and to help the Democrats gain seats in the state legislature? Like, where can they go to get more information on volunteering or donating, or what action items are there for them?
Super. I'm so happy you asked that question, because the stakes are so high in this election, and it is about the statewide ticket, but we do have our House of Delegates that are up. We are right at 34 right now, 34 out of 100, and that has been, they have stuck together. When Governor McAuliffe vetoed legislation, they all stuck together, upheld all of his vetoes, but we surely would like to add to those ranks, and so that Ralph Northam will be able to get more accomplished. So to get folks involved, and, whether you live in Virginia or outside, you can just text BLUE to 21333. It's just that simple. BLUE to 21333. And we would really appreciate anybody and everybody that would like to help us out, because I do think that this is, we're an off-year election. We have elections every year, but this one is the precursor to next year, when a lot of states have governor's races, U.S. Senate races, congressional races up, and this is a precursor to really the Trump effect, I guess is what I would say. And I think the eyes of the nation are going to be watching on what we do and how we do.
Susan, Jonathan Martin has a story in the New York Times today about African-American turnout, where a local Virginia County NAACP president says he's worried that black voters aren't engaged. What are Virginia Democrats doing to increase turnout to make sure we get everyone out on Election Day?
We have a base program that we're reaching out to all of everybody. We are leaving no stone unturned. But I think the biggest mobilizer and the biggest energizer for that is President Obama coming in tonight. I mean, that just speaks to everybody. But I think that will be, this is the first. I can't tell you how much our phones, texts, emails lit up when that announcement went out, and how exhilarating and exciting that was, and that will be. And I'm going to go get a glass of wine. I'm going to find a little quiet corner and live stream, watch President Obama on my laptop. I'll probably get a little misty-eyed too, and remember the 08 campaign when Mitch Stewart, who's a friend of yours, was running it in Virginia, and how great that was. And but I think that will help. But we're taking nothing for granted, and we have a very, very aggressive and outreach to all of our constituency groups.
That's good. As you said, you grew up on a farm in rural Virginia. You've been working on outreach to rural voters. A lot of Democrats say, okay, we have to show up and compete everywhere. Totally agree. When Democrats do show up in rural counties, what do they say? What issues should they emphasize?
Well, here's the thing. Number one, I live in Highland County, smallest county in Virginia, west of Charlottesville on the West Virginia border, where I was brought up. Have a house there, have a house, condo in Richmond. So I live in a really, really blue part of Virginia, and I live in a really, really red part of Virginia. The people in both those places want the same thing for their families. They want to know that their kids are going to get a good education. They want to know that if they want to stay in their areas after they graduate from high school, they can, that they have some sort of sense of job security, and they want to know that they're safe and secure, that you don't have to live paycheck and paycheck. You don't have to live in fear. You're not going to school and be worried about, getting shot, getting hurt, getting bullied, which, that's increased over this last year. And why do we think that is? I mean, I think studies will prove that. I mean, when you have the President of the United States, there's nothing but the biggest bully in chief. Kids are going to follow that example. But parents want the same thing, no matter where you're from. Families want the same thing. Financial security, knowing that you have health care. I mean, what the President has done to gut the ACA is nothing but just plain out cruel. And putting that kind of financial insecurity and just meanness in that you are risking putting lives at stake. So people are the same everywhere. That's what I have found. I hear the same thing no matter where. Now, the other thing is, we didn't lose those rural voters. We didn't lose my people overnight. We're not going to get them back overnight. But if we don't go out there and talk to them and keep working it, it's just like exercise. If you don't do it, you atrophy. So you got. I think, is that how you say it? Atrophy or
that's
atrophy?
Right. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I like the analogy.
Got to work it. The one thing that is really great, and I just want to say I'm so proud of our House candidates too, and that is one thing. We have all these great House candidates who run in rural areas. Our committees have grown. We have these great committees we've had rural areas where they've been dormant or just like lax, and we have seen growth in that. And that's one thing I'm really proud of the party, but I'm really excited about where we are. We just can't let up on the gas right now.
I think that last piece of advice is the one that everyone should take to heart that wants this election to go the right way, which is don't let up on the gas. Everyone work your hearts out in these final days, because this is a tight race and it's going to be close, and we need to do everything we can to get Ralph Northam over the finish line. So thank you, Susan, so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on the pod.
It's been a pleasure. And, hey, I'm the first Howland County resident, I bet you, that has asked to be a friend of the pod.
You are? Well, this is perfect. I mean, at least that I know. I don't know how many T-shirts there are in Highland County. Maybe there's a couple, but we...
If they're out there, they should tweet at us.
Yeah, we'll send you a friend of the pod T-shirt so you can wear it out in Highland County.
Sounds great. I hope I've started a groundswell.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Okie dokie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Pod Save America is brought to you by Helix.
Helix.
There's a ton of online mattress retailers popping up these days.
It's crazy.
All with a one-size-fits-all solution to a better sleep.
Which is crazy.
Guess what? one size fits all, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
So, Helix Sleep offers something that doesn't exist anywhere else. A mattress that does exist other places, but a mattress that's personalized to your unique preferences and sleeping style.
You know that I'm in the
That
middle
won't set
of,
you back thousands of dollars.
It won't set you back thousands of dollars. I have created a custom mattress, and I'm about to pull the trigger on it. But I was debating whether or not I was going to make the mattress all the same or have two sides, you know?
What do you think?
You know, it's hard to say. I found myself thinking, like, I'm really committing to a way of sleeping. Because it's like, do you sleep on your side? Do you sleep on your stomach? It's like, right now I do, but like maybe I want to adjust. Maybe I want the flexibility to make a different kind of choice.
Keep us updated on this.
I will.
Will you? Will you do me a favor and keep us updated here on the pod?
Sometimes I'll be on a mattress and I'll be watching a drama about a society rebuilding after zombies attacked.
Try it for 100 nights. If you don't love it, they'll pick it up and refund you in full. Go to helixsleep.com/crooked right now.
John, it turns out
You'll get $50 towards your custom mattress.
You know, the real villain? It's man himself.
That's helixsleep.com/crooked for $50 off your first order. helixsleep.com/crooked.
First come the zombies, but then come human flaws.
Pod Save America. It's brought to you by the Cash App.
The Cash App, John. You know, John, we've been given
Yeah.
an instruction.
Our friends at the Cash App, they don't want us to talk about it today. They just want to donate their ad to the International Rescue Committee, as we've been talking about with the Cash App recently. The International Rescue Committee responds to the world's worst humanitarian crises and helps people whose lives are shattered by conflict and disaster to survive, recover, and gain control of their future. Today, there are more than 65 million people uprooted from their homes around the world, the largest number ever recorded. The IRC provides health, water, and sanitation, education, economic assistance, and special services that protect children and empower women in more than 40 countries. The IRC also resettles refugee families in 28 cities across the United States, helping them to thrive and become American citizens who enrich the fabric of our country. Please go to the IRC, go to the website, and donate today. It will mean a lot to people all over the world who very much need help. So thank you for that.
And we're switching to the Cash App.
There you go. On the pod, we have the host of Crooked Medias with Friends Like These, Anna Marie Cox. Hello, Anna.
Hello, gentlemen.
So who is, let's start with who's on the show this week.
Well, it is a jam-packed show. Van Newkirk is on, writer for The Atlantic.
Yeah.
We talk about his piece defining white supremacy, which is kind of like a 101 thing that a lot of times I think people assume they know what that means. But he really lays it out and goes to the history of the term. And we talk about why that's useful. And in my opinion, more useful than calling people racist is talking about white supremacy. And then I talked to Helen Rosner, and weirdly, we talk about patriarchy. So we cover a lot of bases in this one. The two big, systems of oppression in America. So I think it's pretty good. And actually, the conversation with Helen is in response to a listener question. That's actually one of the most intense questions we've ever gotten, which is from someone who admits that he had I'm going to very generously call it a gray area encounter with a woman in his life. And he wanted to know, as someone who's now older and wiser, what is his place in this conversation, the Me Too conversation?
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad
I think it's an
that.
important question to ask. Yeah. I think the self-reflection that he shows, spoiler alert, it's a tough conversation and a tough answer for this guy, but the fact that he was willing to be introspective says a lot. And I hope, guys, the two men I'm talking to, I hope a lot of men are introspective about this and re-examine their own behavior. It's not just about pointing out the real assholes, No. I mean, it's about...
I totally agree. I mean, Tommy and I did a Facebook live stream yesterday, and someone asked about Me Too, and my answer was I'm both, reading all of the accounts, both on Twitter, which is shorter, but on Facebook, people, obviously women posted longer accounts on Facebook. It's like both heartbreaking to read them and also heartening that women are finding the courage to speak out about this after the Weinstein scandal.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, I want to put a pin in the idea that the showing courage part, because I think a lot of times coming forward gets described as having courage.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with not saying what happened to you.
There's no. You know what? I would say it's hard. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And I would imagine
Yes.
that under no matter what the circumstances are, that speaking out and especially making it public is an incredibly hard thing to do. And so it's good to see that. But I think if the only side of that equation is women speaking out, then we have failed to make any significant changes in the culture, and that men need to do a lot of reflecting. Because look, we've all been in offices, in parties, we've been in social situations where a man says something awful to a woman, says something that is, as you said, either gray area or clearly crosses the line, and we haven't said anything. A lot of men that I've talked to since the Weinstein thing, actually, some have said, it has caused me to think back on all of my behavior over the years and stuff like that. And that, as you said, that self-reflection, I think, is important and useful. And just as important is the fact that, men, when we are in situations, when we are in rooms where this happens, where we see this happen, that we don't just let it slide because we're afraid to speak up and say something, or because we don't want to look like, we're attacking our buddy or just, yelling at someone. Like, it's important to say something. It has to be, because otherwise we never change this culture.
And Helen actually wrote a great piece. The reason why I had her on, she wrote a piece for Medium that's 20 things that men can do right the fuck now, besides literally not harassing us. And maybe a good segue to our next topic of conversation, because she talks about things that men can do in their everyday lives that help dismantle the patriarchy, for lack of that's the perfect way to put it. There are things that men can do all the time that go beyond simply not, harassing people. And one of them is, supporting freedom of choice.
The story that you brought to our attention from the Washington Post, I had not seen, and it is incredible. I'll give you guys the lead, and then we can jump into it. A federal judge ordered the U.S. government to allow an undocumented teenager in its custody to have an abortion, and said she was astounded that the Trump administration was trying to block the procedure. I mean, you got to go read the whole story, but at one point, the judge asks the lawyer from the Department of Justice whether he thought illegal immigrants had constitutional rights and whether he believes Roe v. Wade is still the law of the land. And the lawyer said he wouldn't concede the point. And the judge she laughed and said, "This is remarkable," which I found also remarkable. I found the story remarkable as well. Anna, what did you think?
It's a terrifying story. It really is. One of the details of the story is this happened in Texas, and Texas has already restricted, access to reproductive freedom so much that she's going to have to go through some more hurdles. The Jane Doe involved in this, she can't just go get the procedure done. She has to go appear, and then there's a waiting period, and there's a lot of travel involved because there's only a few places in Texas you can even get an abortion. So this story really illustrates what a lot of us fear is the future, which is a culture that's not pro-life. Helen actually introduced me to this term, and I think it's one that I would encourage everyone to start using when you're talking about the other side of the reproductive freedom debate, which is forced childbirth.
Right.
That is what this is. This is Handmaid's Tale.
That's what I said. I said that to Dan.
It's Handmaid's Tale.
I said that right before we called you. I was like, this Washington Post story is very Handmaid's Tale. Probably people have been saying that about a lot of stories since The Handmaid's Tale came out, but this is actually the closest to this show.
It's very on the nose for that analogy.
Yeah. And I do think this idea that when people are against freedom of choice, they're not pro-life, they're pro-forced childbirth, is such a more clear way to describe that position. Because I know a bunch of pro-life people who are, for instance, pro-death penalty, right?
Right.
Who are pro-cutting welfare, who are pro-gutting ACA, things that I would think of as pro-life, things that support life.
They're not exactly consistent.
What they really are interested in is something really specific, which is forcing children to give birth, forcing them to do that. And there's actually no other way to describe their position.
You're right. And just the way, and also fitting the story in with the way that the Trump administration treats and has treated and will treat undocumented immigrants as a whole makes it even more infuriating too. expel these Americans, some people who've been here for a long time, from this country. They want to put them in, detention centers, the ICE raids and stuff like that. They want to. So on one hand, they're pushing them away, but and in this case, if you're an undocumented immigrant who has escaped violence in another country and you come here for refuge, and you come here because in this case of this woman, that she did want to terminate her pregnancy, then to the idea that they're going to force you to give birth and then probably deport you from the country is just
exactly
awful.
That is like the capper to this, right? They would force her to give birth and then give her nothing else,
right?
Except maybe a plane ticket home, right? And also they really tipped their hand in doing this because they admitted in court they don't think immigrants have rights. They don't, and that's an appalling position to take, I think, in a country that was founded on the idea of inalienable rights.
And not what settled case law says.
Yes, that too.
Right? I mean, we don't have to guess on who's right or who's we've had cases about this,
Yeah.
Yeah, This to me, I think that what you guys are saying is exactly right, that this is sort of a microcosm of all of Trumpism in its purest form, which is they are doing this to this individual because they think they can, right? All parts of it, whether it is the forced childbirth, the deportation, it is to find the most vulnerable person you can and then try to use it as a vehicle to enforce your worst beliefs, knowing that this is the person who will have the least ability to fight back on their behalf because it's a woman, it's a young person, it's someone with undocumented status, and you can just see it in the way in which they've approached the case. As you guys put on the legal argument, which is we're going to discard all of what everyone else believes and just make this absurd case because we think we can here because this person will not be able to defend themselves in the way others might.
And who knows if Donald Trump even knows about this? I'm sure he doesn't. He doesn't. It's not like he's reading the Washington Post. If it wasn't on Fox and Friends, he doesn't know about it. So it's important to say, like you said, Dan, it's Trumpism, but it's not necessarily Trump. This is like Jeff Sessions. This is some of the lawyers he's probably hired at DOJ. This is like a Mike Pence type thing, right? This has been brewing in the modern Republican Party for quite some time, at least a huge faction of it.
I totally agree. The Trumpism, I guess we talk about this all the time. Trumpism is a lot more dangerous than Trump. Well, actually, you know what? I take that back.
We'll see.
It is distinct from Trump, but it is as dangerous as Trump. Trumpism can't press the nuclear weapons button. Trump can. So that would be the distinction. But yeah, I mean, this is the patriarchy and the misogyny that we've seen from the Republican Party for a long time. Finally, if you'll excuse the metaphor, bearing fruit.
Yes. I will excuse the metaphor. Thank you for bringing that story to our attention because it is it's gone under the radar this week with all of the other.
Can I actually say
messiness.
something?
Yes, please.
Well, if people, I know you guys are all about giving people action items.
Yeah.
If they're upset about something, there are legal aid centers for people seeking to terminate their pregnancy. NARAL is obviously a good place to donate to. I think the Center for Reproductive Rights is the place that I support. There are people fighting for the rights of this young woman and your rights too. This policy does affect everyone. We all should remember that, not just women. It affects everyone. So
everyone tune into With Friends Like These. Drops Friday as usual. And Anna, thank you for joining us as always.
All right. Thank you guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right, guys, thank you to Susan Swecker and to Anna Marie Cox for joining us today, and we will see you on Monday.
Bye, guys.